THALES of Miletus. Imagine being the first person to look at the world and ask, "What is everything made of?" This was Thales, the founder of Western philosophy. Living in the bustling trade city of Miletus around 600 BCE, he made a revolutionary break from mythological explanations, seeking rational answers about our universe. His most famous idea was that water is the fundamental substance of all things. While this might seem strange today, his reasoning was remarkably sophisticated. He observed how water transforms, becoming steam when heated, ice when frozen, and seeming to give life to everything that grows. Thales saw water's transformative power and concluded it must be the basic building block of reality. He noticed how seeds and nutrients needed moisture to grow, how water seemed to emerge from everything when heated or compressed. But Thales wasn't just a theoretical thinker. He was also a practical scientist and businessman. He used his understanding of astronomy to predict a solar eclipse in 585 BCE, a feat that amazed his contemporaries. He even applied his knowledge to make money. Once predicting a good olive harvest, he bought all the olive presses in advance and made a fortune renting them out. His greatest contribution wasn't his specific theories about water, but his method of thinking. He showed that natural phenomena could be explained through reason and observation, rather than through myths about gods and spirits. This shift from mythological to rational explanation marked the birth of both philosophy and science. He taught that the world operates according to natural laws that humans can understand through observation and reason, a revolutionary idea that forms the basis of modern scientific thinking. Pythagoras. Far more than just the inventor of a geometric theorem, Pythagoras was a spiritual leader, mathematician, and philosopher who fundamentally changed how we think about numbers and reality. Leading a mysterious religious sect in southern Italy around 500 BCE, he created a unique blend of mysticism and mathematics that would influence thinkers for centuries. His greatest insight came from music. By experimenting with a string instrument called the monochord, he discovered that musical harmony could be expressed in mathematical ratios. When a string was divided in simple proportions 1-2, 2-3, 3-4, it produced pleasing musical notes. This led to a revolutionary idea: if mathematics could explain something as ethereal as musical harmony, perhaps it could explain everything in the universe. All is number became his fundamental principle. The Pythagorean community he founded was both a religious order and a research institution. Members lived communally, shared all property, and followed strict rules, including vegetarianism. They practiced mathematics as a form of spiritual purification, believing that understanding numbers could cleanse the soul and prepare it for reincarnation. Women were accepted as equals in the community, unusual for ancient Greece. Perhaps their most profound discovery was the existence of irrational numbers, found when they tried to measure the diagonal of a square. This discovery shook their belief that everything could be expressed as a ratio of whole numbers. Legend says the discoverer was drowned for revealing this disturbing truth. While this story is probably myth, it shows how seriously they took their mathematical investigations.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
HERACLITUS, known as both the obscure for his cryptic writings and the weeping philosopher for his pessimism about human nature, Heraclitus of Ephesus developed some of philosophy's most enduring insights about change, stability, and the nature of reality. His most famous principle is that everything is in constant flux, captured in the phrase "panta rei," everything flows. He illustrated this with the famous river analogy: no man steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man. This wasn't just about physical change. Heraclitus saw change as the fundamental reality of the universe, with apparent stability being an illusion. Yet within this constant change, Heraclitus identified an underlying order he called the logos, a cosmic principle of reason and balance. He saw existence as a unity of opposites: day needs night, hot needs cold, life needs death. These opposites aren't really in conflict, but part of a larger harmony. Like a bow or lyre, the universe creates harmony through tension. He was famously critical of other philosophers and common people alike, earning a reputation as an arrogant misanthrope. He wrote his philosophy in deliberately paradoxical and mysterious ways, believing that wisdom couldn't be directly taught, but had to be discovered through careful reflection. His work influenced fields from modern physics through his emphasis on constant change to psychology through his insights about the unity of opposites. Parmenides. Standing in stark contrast to Heraclitus, Parmenides developed what might be history's first purely logical philosophy. Born in Elia, southern Italy, he argued that our senses deceive us, and only pure reason can reveal truth. His core argument is both simple and shocking: change is impossible, and reality is a single, unchanging, eternal whole. His reasoning went like this: something either exists or it doesn't. There's no middle ground. If something exists, it can't come from nothing, for nothing comes from nothing, and it can't come from something, for that would mean it already existed. Therefore, change is impossible. Similarly, empty space can't exist because it would be nothing, and nothing can't exist. Thus, reality must be completely full, unified, and unchanging. Parmenides presented his philosophy in a poem where he describes a divine revelation. A goddess shows him two paths: the way of truth revealed by reason, showing reality as unchanging, and the way of opinion, based on our unreliable senses, which falsely show us a world of change and multiplicity. While most people follow the way of opinion, the philosopher must follow the way of truth. This seemingly abstract argument had profound implications. Parmenides was the first to insist that logical reasoning could reveal truths that contradicted all human experience. His followers, like ZENO, developed famous paradoxes showing the logical impossibility of motion. While few accepted his extreme conclusions, his method of using pure logic to question fundamental assumptions influenced all subsequent philosophy, particularly Plato's theory of forms. Socrates. The pivotal figure in Western philosophy, Socrates invented a new way of thinking through systematic questioning. Unlike other philosophers who lectured about their theories, Socrates claimed to know nothing and instead engaged others in probing conversations that exposed the limitations of their knowledge. The famous Socratic method begins with Socrates asking someone to define a concept like justice, courage, or virtue. As they answer, he asks increasingly difficult questions, revealing contradictions in their thinking. This process, which he called MILETUS midwifery, was meant to help birth new understanding by clearing away false certainties. He compared himself to a gadfly stinging the comfortable citizens of Athens into examining their beliefs. What made Socrates revolutionary wasn't just his method, but his focus. Earlier philosophers studied nature and the cosmos. Socrates insisted that understanding ourselves, our values, beliefs, and ethical choices was philosophy's true task. His famous saying, "The unexamined life is not worth living," captured this commitment to ethical self-reflection. His influence came at a high price. In 399 BCE, Athens put him on trial for corrupting the youth and impiety. Rather than flee or compromise his principles, he accepted the death sentence, drinking hemlock while discussing philosophy with his friends. His death became a powerful symbol of intellectual integrity and the conflict between philosophy and political power. While Socrates wrote nothing, his influence through his student Plato shaped the entire course of Western thought. Plato transformed philosophy from a collection of scattered insights into a comprehensive system addressing reality, knowledge, ethics, and politics. Profoundly influenced by Socrates' execution, he sought to understand how society could be organized to promote wisdom and justice rather than power and prejudice. His most famous idea, the theory of forms, argues that the physical world we see is just a shadow of a higher reality of perfect, unchanging forms or ideas. When we recognize a chair, we're comparing it to the perfect form of chairness. Similarly, when we call something beautiful or just, we're measuring it against the eternal forms of beauty and justice. This theory attempts to solve problems about knowledge and reality. How can we have certain knowledge in a changing world? How can many different things share the same quality? The allegory of the cave, perhaps philosophy's most famous image, illustrates this view. Prisoners chained in a cave see only shadows on a wall, thinking these are reality. If freed and dragged into sunlight, they'd be painfully dazzled, but would eventually see true reality. Similarly, philosophy helps us move from the shadows of opinion to the sunlight of true understanding. Plato founded the Academy, ancient history's first university, where these ideas were debated and developed. His writings, uniquely composed as dramatic dialogues, show philosophy in action rather than just stating conclusions. They combine logical argument, myth, and drama to engage readers at multiple levels. His political philosophy, detailed in the Republic, argues that society should be ruled by philosopher kings trained in rational thinking and ethical wisdom. While this might seem authoritarian, his deeper point was that good governance requires wisdom, not just power or popular appeal. His ideas about education, justice, and the relationship between individual and society remain startlingly relevant. Aristotle. Plato's greatest student, Aristotle, became his greatest critic, developing a distinctly different approach to understanding reality. While Plato looked to an ideal realm beyond the physical world, Aristotle insisted that truth could be found through careful observation and logical analysis of the world around us. His method was comprehensive and systematic. He created logic as a formal discipline, developing rules for valid reasoning that remained standard until modern times. His scientific works covered everything from physics to biology, including detailed observations of animals and plants. He classified living things into a hierarchy that influenced biology until Darwin. In metaphysics, Aristotle developed sophisticated theories about causation, substance, and change. He identified 4 causes behind everything material, what it's made of, formal its essential nature, efficient what brings it about, and final its purpose. This framework helped explain both natural processes and human activities. He saw reality as composed of individual substances combining matter potential, and form actuality, explaining change as the realization of potential. His ethical theory focuses on character rather than rules. Virtue, he argued, is a mean between extremes developed through habit and practical wisdom. Courage, for example, is the mean between cowardice and recklessness. The goal of life is eudaimonia, human flourishing, achieved through developing our distinctive human capacity for rational activity. As Alexander the Great's tutor, Aristotle's influence spread throughout the ancient world. His works became the foundation of medieval Christian and Islamic philosophy, and his systematic approach to knowledge shaped Western education for centuries. Even today, his insights into logic, causation, ethics, and political organization remain valuable. Epicurus, often misunderstood as advocating mere pleasure-seeking, Epicurus developed a sophisticated philosophy aimed at achieving tranquility through rational understanding. He established a school called the Garden, where students learned to live simply and cultivate friendship while studying nature and ethics. His physics, based on atomic theory, argued that everything consists of indivisible atoms moving through void. Even the soul, he claimed, is made of especially fine atoms that disperse at death. This materialist view aimed to free people from fear of divine punishment or afterlife torments. Death is nothing to us, he argued, since when we exist, death is not present, and when death is present, we do not exist. Epicurus's ethics centers on pleasure, but not as commonly imagined. He distinguished between kinetic pleasures, active enjoyments, and katastematic pleasures, states of contentment. True happiness comes not from endless sensual indulgence, but from achieving a stable state free from physical pain and mental disturbance. This requires limiting desires to what's natural and necessary, cultivating friendship, and avoiding political ambition. His therapeutic approach to philosophy remains remarkably relevant. Anxiety, he taught, comes from unnecessary desires and irrational fears. By understanding nature's workings and limiting our wants to what's truly needed, we can achieve ataraxia, tranquility. His emphasis on friendship as a key to happiness and his analysis of desire's role in human suffering anticipate modern psychological insights. ZENO of CITIUM, founder of Stoicism, one of history's most influential philosophical schools, ZENO taught from the painted porch Stoa in Athens, developing a comprehensive system integrating physics, logic, and ethics. His central insight was that happiness comes from living in harmony with nature's rational order. The Stoic universe is governed by Logos, divine reason, making everything that happens part of a rational plan. Human beings, possessing reason, can understand this plan and choose to accept it. True freedom, paradoxically, comes from accepting what we cannot change while taking responsible action where we can. The core of Stoic ethics is the idea that virtue alone is good, vice alone is bad, and everything else, wealth, health, reputation, is indifferent. This doesn't mean we shouldn't prefer health to sickness, but rather that our happiness shouldn't depend on external circumstances. By focusing on what we can control, our judgments and actions, rather than what we cannot, we achieve freedom from emotional disturbance. ZENO taught that emotions like fear, anger, and grief arise from false judgments about what's good or bad. Through rational analysis and practical training, we can correct these judgments and achieve apatheia, freedom from disturbing emotions. This isn't emotionlessness, but rather emotional resilience based on clear understanding. Diogenes. Perhaps philosophy's most dramatic figure, Diogenes lived his beliefs with radical consistency. The founder of cynicism, he rejected conventional values and social norms, living in a large ceramic jar and owning only a cloak, a staff, and a bowl which he discarded after seeing a child drink with cupped hands. His philosophy centered on the idea that civilization corrupts natural virtue. Happiness requires freedom from artificial needs and social conventions. He practiced this by performing shocking acts, eating in the marketplace, urinating in public, to demonstrate the arbitrariness of social rules. When Alexander the Great offered to grant him any wish, Diogenes famously replied, "Stand out of my sunlight." But beneath the provocative behavior lay serious philosophical purpose. Diogenes believed that most human unhappiness comes from pursuing artificial needs for money, fame, and power. True happiness requires returning to nature and reason. His life demonstrated that many things we consider necessities are actually conventions we can live without. Democritus. Known as the laughing philosopher for his cheerful disposition, Democritus developed the most sophisticated materialist philosophy of ancient times. His atomic theory was so advanced that it bears striking similarities to modern scientific understanding. Democritus proposed that reality consists entirely of atoms, indivisible particles, and void empty space. Everything we experience, colors, tastes, sounds, thoughts, even the soul, results from different arrangements of these atoms. The atoms themselves possess only shape, size, and motion. All change occurs through their combination and separation, following natural laws rather than divine purpose. What makes his theory remarkable is its explanatory power. He used it to explain perception, atoms from objects entering our senses, thought movements of special soul atoms, and even human behavior, emotions, and character resulting from atomic configurations. He even suggested the existence of infinite worlds, arguing that atoms moving through infinite space must create countless combinations. Beyond physics, Democritus developed ethical ideas emphasizing moderation and inner peace. Happiness, he taught, comes not from external goods but from a well-ordered mind. His cheerfulness wasn't naive optimism, but the result of understanding nature's workings and accepting its laws. Empedocles. Part scientist, part mystic, Empedocles combined careful observation of nature with religious and poetic vision. He claimed to be a fallen god who had experienced multiple reincarnations, yet also conducted sophisticated experiments and developed influential scientific theories. His most famous contribution was the theory of four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. All change occurs through their mixture and separation, driven by two cosmic forces he called love attraction and strife repulsion. This theory influenced science until modern chemistry emerged. What makes Empedocles unique is how he combined this physical theory with spiritual teachings. He believed in reincarnation and taught that souls, including those of animals and plants, are divine beings punished for violence by being forced to transmigrate through different forms. This led him to advocate vegetarianism and non-violence. His work on nature described how the cosmos cycles between periods dominated by love, where everything combines into a perfect sphere, and strife, where everything separates. This cosmic cycle theory influenced later thinkers from the Stoics to modern scientists considering oscillating universe models. Protagoras, the leading sophist philosopher, Protagoras revolutionized thinking about knowledge and truth with his famous statement, "Man is the measure of all things." This seemingly simple phrase contained a radical philosophical perspective that continues to challenge traditional views. His relativism wasn't simple subjectivism, but a sophisticated analysis of human knowledge and perception. He argued that since different people and cultures experience things differently, there can't be absolute truth independent of human perception. What's true for one person or culture might be false for another. As a teacher, Protagoras focused on practical wisdom and rhetoric rather than abstract theory. He taught that while absolute truth might be unattainable, we can develop better or worse ways of thinking and arguing. His approach to education emphasized critical thinking and the ability to argue both sides of an issue. Regarding religion, he famously stated concerning the gods, "I cannot know either that they exist or that they do not exist, for many things prevent such knowledge: the obscurity of the subject and the brevity of human life." This agnostic position showed remarkable intellectual honesty and influenced later philosophical approaches to religious questions.